10 years ago, the human ship Valiant Star disappeared into deep space. No signal, no wreckage, no survivors. Everyone believed it was lost forever. Until today. At exactly 300 hours, Earth's deep space sensors picked up a strange object. It was moving slowly, almost like it was injured. The object was heading straight toward Earth. When the scanners got a clear image, every technician froze in shock. It was Valiant Star. The old ship looked broken. Its metal hull was scarred and burned. Pieces of it were missing. Strange marks, like deep claw scratches, covered its sides. Yet somehow it was still moving, drifting through space like a ghost. Commander Elena Reyes stood inside Earth's Space Command Center, watching the ship on the big screen. Her hands were shaking slightly. She had been a young officer when Valiant Star disappeared. She remembered the news reports, the crying families, the empty funerals. How is this possible? Reyes whispered. Nobody had an answer. The chief scientist, Dr. Kwan, turned to her. His face was pale. Commander, the ship is sending a message. Reyes leaned closer. Put it on. A crackling voice filled the command center. It was broken, filled with static, but the words were clear enough to send chills down every spine. The threat is real. We are not alone. Do not trust the stars. The message repeated again and again, like a warning. Reyes stared at the screen. Something about the ship felt wrong. It should have been a moment of celebration, the return of lost heroes. But instead, the air was heavy with fear. Send a team, she ordered. Get that ship into orbit. Bring the crew home. 2 hours later, the best rescue team was ready. They flew a small transport ship called Falcon 1 toward the drifting Valiant Star. As they got closer, they could see more terrible details. Parts of the ship had melted like they had been exposed to extreme heat. Strange, dark stains marked the floors and walls. Lights flickered weakly inside the ship, like it was struggling to stay alive. Captain Jonah Price, leader of the rescue team, frowned as he looked through the window. This feels wrong, he said quietly. His second in command, Lieutenant Vega, nodded. Something bad happened to them. Falcon 1 carefully connected to the airlock. The doors opened with a loud hiss. The smell of burnt metal and something else, something rotten, filled the air. The rescue team stepped inside. The ship was dark. Only a few emergency lights blinked in the corridors. The walls were scratched and broken. Some parts looked like they had been rebuilt using strange materials, things the humans did not recognize. And then they saw the crew. About 20 people were standing silently in the hallway. They wore their old uniforms, but they were dirty and torn. Their faces were pale. Their eyes were wide open, unblinking, as if they were staring into something only they could see. Captain Harris, Price called out, recognizing the old captain of Valiant Star. The man stepped forward slowly. His face was gaunt, skin tight over bone. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came out, only a dry, painful wheeze. Lieutenant Vega moved to help, but Harris raised a hand weakly. They are watching, he whispered hoarsely. Price frowned. Who's watching? Harris just shook his head and pointed upwards, toward the stars. Suddenly, the lights on the ship flickered wildly. A loud, deep rumble echoed through the metal floors. The rescue team tightened their grips on their weapons. We need to get them out of here, Price said. Now. Back on Earth, Commander Reyes watched as Falcon 1 returned, carrying the lost crew. She expected celebration, applause, relief. Instead, the returning crew stepped onto Earth's soil like shadows of their former selves. They didn't smile. They didn't cry. They simply stood silently, looking at the sky with haunted eyes. Dr. Kwan scanned their bodies. What he found made no sense. Their biological readings were wrong. Their heartbeats were slow. Their body temperatures were cold, too cold for normal humans. And their brain activity, it looked like they were still dreaming, even while awake. Commander, Dr. Kwan said urgently. These people, they're not the same. Before Reyes could answer, the ground shook. Everyone looked up. A dark shape moved across the sky, blocking the stars. It was huge, silent, watching. Commander Reyes felt her heart stop. The message was true. They were not alone. And Earth had only just begun to understand the real danger. The lost crew of Valiant Star had finally returned to Earth, but something about them was wrong. Very wrong. They stood silently on the landing platform, eyes wide, faces empty. They didn't speak. They didn't move unless someone guided them. It was like they had forgotten how to be human. Commander Elena Rice watched them from behind a thick glass wall. She felt a chill deep inside her bones. This was not the homecoming she had dreamed of. It felt more like a warning. "We need to run full medical tests," Dr. Kwan said. His voice was shaking slightly. "Something is not right with them." Reyes nodded. "Take them to isolation bay. Full quarantine." As the guards led the crew members away, one of them suddenly turned and stared directly at Reyes. It was Captain Harris. His mouth opened just slightly, but no words came out. Only a look full of sadness and fear. Reyes shivered. She knew that look. It was the look of someone who had seen something too terrible to describe. Inside the isolation bay, doctors and scientists worked fast. They scanned the crew's bodies. They checked their blood. They monitored their brains. What they found made no sense. Their heart rates were far too slow. Their body temperatures were far too cold. Their brain waves showed deep activity, like they were trapped inside a nightmare they couldn't escape. But on the outside, they were calm. Too calm. Dr. Kwan sat in front of a computer screen, watching the data flow in. "Commander," he said, "this crew, it's like they are here, but also not here." "What do you mean?" Reyes asked. "They're alive," Kwan said, "but something inside them is missing. Or maybe something new is inside them." Reyes felt her stomach turn. She looked through the glass into the isolation bay. The crew sat on their beds, staring blankly at the walls. None of them spoke. None of them even blinked. Later that night, an emergency alarm sounded across the Space Command Center. Commander Reyes rushed to the isolation bay. When she arrived, the guards were already inside, weapons raised. One of the crew members, Ensign Miller, was standing in the middle of the room. He had scratched strange symbols into the walls with his fingernails. The symbols were long, twisted, and painful to look at, almost alive. Miller's mouth was moving silently, as if he was praying to something unseen. Reyes stepped forward carefully. "Ensign Miller," she said, "can you hear me?" Miller slowly turned his head toward her. His eyes were empty, like deep black holes. And then, in a whisper that was not his own, he spoke. "The stars lie. The stars lie. The stars lie." His voice echoed strangely, like two voices speaking at once, one human, one not. The guards moved to restrain him, but before they could, Miller collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Reyes stared at the strange symbols on the wall. Somehow, she knew this was a message, a warning. In the command center, Reyes and Dr. Kwan reviewed the footage from Valiant Star's security cameras, the last recordings before the ship had returned. The footage was dark and broken, but parts were still clear. The crew was fighting something invisible. Doors slammed open and closed by themselves. Lights flashed. Crew members screamed and fired weapons at empty air. And then, the last video showed Captain Harris standing alone on the bridge, blood covering his hands. He looked straight into the camera. He spoke 3 final words before the recording ended. "They are here." The screen went black. Reyes leaned back in her chair, heart pounding. "What happened to them out there?" she whispered. Dr. Kwan looked at her grimly. "I don't know," he said, "but whatever it was, it's not finished." That night, as Earth slept under a dark sky, Something far above moved in the cold blackness of space, something that had followed Valiant Star home, something that was now watching, waiting, and it was only just beginning. The next morning, Commander Reyes called an emergency meeting. The silent crew could not stay like this. Earth needed answers. What happened to Valiant Star? And what was the real threat hiding in space? Dr. Kwan had a plan. "We can use mind scan technology," he said. "It reads memories. It will show us what they saw." Reyes agreed, but she felt a cold fear inside her chest. Some memories are not meant to be seen. Inside the medical lab, Captain Harris was the first to be scanned. He sat quietly in the chair, wires attached to his head. His eyes stayed wide open, never blinking. The screen lit up. At first, there was only darkness. Then, flashes of images. The rescue team and scientists leaned closer to the screen. They saw stars, endless stars, but they were wrong. Twisted, burning in strange colors. They saw the Valiant Star drifting toward a massive black hole, bigger than anything recorded in human history. And then, something came out of the darkness. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a creature. It was both. A living machine, cold and ancient, with a surface that shimmered like broken glass. It had no lights, no windows, but somehow it was alive. And it was watching. On the screen, the crew of Valiant Star tried to turn away, but the thing pulled them closer. It sent strange pulses into the ship, pulses that entered their minds. The crew screamed. Some collapsed. Some fought each other. Captain Harris tried to give orders, but nobody listened. It was like their minds were no longer their own. The last memory showed the black ship opening wide, like a giant mouth, ready to swallow them. Then the memory cut off. The room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Commander Reyes stared at the frozen screen. Her heart felt heavy. They had touched something in deep space, something that did not want to be found. Dr. Kwan wiped sweat from his forehead. This thing didn't just attack their ship," he said quietly. "It attacked their minds." Reyes nodded slowly. It changed them. As they prepared to scan the next crew member, something strange happened. The lights flickered. The machines started beeping wildly. The air grew cold, and the walls seemed to breathe. Suddenly, Captain Harris stood up violently, breaking the wires from his head. His face twisted into a mask of terror. "They know," he shouted. "They know we're here." Before the guards could react, Harris collapsed onto the floor, unconscious. The other crew members in the isolation bay began whispering together, their words blending into one horrible sound. The doctors and guards froze, unsure what to do. Commander Reyes made a decision. "Sedate them," she ordered. Now, within minutes, the crew was back under control, sleeping in their beds. But the fear remained. Reyes knew it was not just a memory. It was a warning. Something was coming. Something that could twist human minds into weapons. Later that night, Reyes stood alone on the balcony of the command center. She looked up at the stars. They used to be symbols of hope and adventure. Now, they looked like the eyes of monsters. A soft sound behind her made her turn. Dr. Kwan stood there, holding a datapad. "Commander," he said carefully, "there's something else you need to see." He handed her the pad. On it was a recording from the deep space satellites, recorded just minutes ago. It showed dozens of strange shapes moving through the darkness, heading toward Earth. Silent, invisible to the human eye. But now, they were too close to hide. Reyes felt her heart pound. "They're already coming," she whispered. And this time, humanity might not survive. Earth was not ready. The sky looked peaceful. The cities below were busy. People laughed, worked, and lived their lives, unaware of what was coming. But Commander Elena Reyes knew. Inside Space Command, alarms were ringing. Red lights flashed. Every screen showed the same terrible sight. Dozens of unknown objects moving fast toward Earth. "They'll be here in minutes," Dr. Kwan said, fear in his voice. Reyes gave the order. "Activate planetary defense. Get all ships in the air. Tell every city to prepare for lockdown." Soldiers and pilots rushed to their stations. Giant cannons rose from hidden bunkers. Fighter ships blasted off into the sky. Earth was preparing for its first real war against the unknown. In the sky above, the strange shapes grew closer. At first, they looked like black clouds. But as they entered the atmosphere, their real forms appeared. They were dark, sharp creatures, part machine, part nightmare. Their bodies shifted and twisted as they moved. They made no sound, no radio signals. They just came, silent and deadly. The first blast came without warning. A beam of black energy shot down, striking the defense tower. The tower melted instantly, falling like wet sand. "Return fire," Reyes shouted. Earth's cannons opened fire, filling the sky with explosions. Missiles streaked through the air. Fighter ships raced to intercept the attackers. Some of the enemy creatures were hit, bursting into black smoke. But for every one destroyed, two more appeared. They moved too fast. They dodged like they knew the attacks before they happened. Captain Jonah Price, leader of Falcon 1, was now leading a fighter squadron. He gripped his controls tightly as he chased one of the black creatures through the clouds. "Target locked," he muttered. He fired. A missile slammed into the creature, tearing it apart. But before Price could celebrate, another dark shape slammed into his ship, spinning it out of control. "Falcon 1 down," he shouted as he fought to regain balance. Somehow, he managed to steady the ship and pulled up, gasping for air. This was not like any battle humans had ever fought. The enemy wasn't just stronger, it was smarter. Back at Space Command, Dr. Kwan noticed something strange. He studied the attack patterns on his screen. The creatures were not hitting random targets. They were focusing on communication centers, radar stations, and satellite links. "They're trying to blind us," Kwan said. "They want to cut Earth off from itself." Commander Reyes realized the truth. "They're not here to destroy us fast," she said. "They want to make us weak, afraid, alone." In the isolation bay, the silent crew stirred. Captain Harris opened his eyes. He sat up, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "It begins." Without warning, he and the other crew members began to chant in low, terrible voices. The strange symbols appeared again, this time glowing faintly on the walls and floors. The doctors tried to stop them, but an invisible force threw them back. The silent crew was no longer fully human. They were now part of the enemy. Outside, the battle grew worse. Entire city blocks fell silent as communication grids went down. People ran through the streets, terrified, looking at the sky where dark shadows flew like vultures. Commander Reyes stood firm at her station. She refused to let fear control her. "Send the message to every surviving ship and city," she ordered. "We fight. We do not give up." Deep in space, beyond the moon, something bigger moved. A massive shape, hidden in darkness, watched the battle unfold. It was not in a hurry. It knew Earth's defenses would fall. It was only a matter of time. And when the time was right, it would come down itself and finish what it started. The world was breaking apart. Cities burned. Skies filled with black smoke. Communication lines were dead in half the countries, and the dark creatures kept coming. Commander Elena Reyes stood in the Space Command Center, her fists clenched. Every report was worse than the last, but she refused to give up. "There has to be a way," she said. "We are humans. We fight back." Dr. Kwan, tired but determined, rushed toward her with new data. "Commander," he shouted, "I found something." He placed a hologram on the table. It showed the black creatures and something hidden inside them, a small glowing core. "This core is alive," Kwan said. "It's not machine. It's organic, and it's connected to the mothership, the huge one hiding in space. Reyes leaned forward. If we destroy the cores, Quan nodded. It will kill them. Maybe even weaken the mothership itself. Hope sparked inside Reyes. Then we fight smarter, she said. Target the cores. We aim for the heart. Across the world, Reyes sent a secret message to the remaining defense teams. Forget the body. Aim for the core. Pilots, soldiers, and even civilians armed with whatever they had prepared for a new kind of battle. Captain Jonah Price, still flying Falcon 1, received the orders. He smiled grimly. Finally, some good news. The next wave of attacks began. This time, humanity was ready. Instead of wasting bullets on the dark shells, fighters focused fire on the glowing cores. The results were instant. When a core was hit, the dark creature screamed, a sound that shook the air and then exploded into ash. Cheers rose from the defense teams. For the first time in days, humans were winning small battles, street by street, sky by sky, life by life. They were pushing back. But not everything was victory. In the isolation bay, the silent crew was changing faster. Their bodies twisted, their skin cracking like old stone. Symbols floated around them, unseen by human eyes. They were becoming something else, something not human, not even alive. Dr. Quan warned Reyes. If they complete the transformation, they'll become beacons. They'll call the real enemy straight to us. Reyes looked at the video screens showing the broken Earth. She made a hard decision. Prepare the emergency purge system, she said. If we can't save them, we have to stop them. Her voice broke slightly, but she stayed strong. This was war. And in war, mercy could be deadly. Meanwhile, in space, the giant mothership stirred. It had felt the change. It had felt the death of its children. And now it decided to act. Slowly, it began to move toward Earth, faster, more angry. Its true body was revealed under the blackness, a terrible thing made of broken worlds and stolen machines. Earth had wounded it. Now it would answer. At Space Command, Reyes stared at the incoming signal. Everyone in the room felt the same fear rise. But Reyes lifted her head and spoke clearly. Prepare for the final battle. Humanity stands. For the first time in a long time, people across Earth heard her voice. And they believed. Because humans don't bow. Humans fight. And sometimes, humans win. The battle for Earth was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future. The alien mothership was closer now, almost within striking distance. It was a massive, twisted structure, a nightmare made real. The darkness around it seemed to swallow the light of the stars. Commander Elena Reyes stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the screens. We don't have much time, Dr. Quan said. He looked exhausted, but determination burned in his eyes. If we don't hit it hard enough, it will retaliate with everything it has. Reyes nodded, her jaw clenched. This is it. No turning back. The countdown began. Across the Earth, the world's remaining military forces prepared for the final assault. People everywhere stood together. Pilots climbed into fighter jets. Soldiers took their positions. Civilians watched from their homes, praying, hoping, knowing this was their last chance. Humans don't bow. Humans fight. Reyes's words echoed in their hearts. In space, the battle began. Fighter ships fired missiles at the massive mothership. The sky lit up with explosions. The creatures that followed the ship retaliated, attacking the human ships in waves. But the humans had a new strategy. Instead of fighting them head-on, they surrounded them, cutting off escape routes. Every shot counted. Every missile, every laser, aimed for the weak points, the glowing cores. And one by one, the creatures exploded into dust. The alien mothership roared in anger. It sent down a blast of energy so powerful that it shook Earth's surface. But the humans weren't done. Captain Jonah Price, flying in Falcon 1, led a group of fighter jets into the heart of the alien ship's defenses. "We're taking the core down," Price said, voice steady. "No fear. We end this now." As they flew toward the heart of the mothership, the battle became a deadly dance. Lasers fired. Ships exploded. But they didn't stop. Price's ship locked on to the mothership's core, the source of its power. With a final, desperate strike, the core exploded in a burst of white-hot light. The universe seemed to pause. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the mothership began to break apart. It shook, sending shockwaves through space, before crumbling into dust. The darkness that had haunted Earth for so long faded away, like a bad dream. The humans had done it. They had won. Back on Earth, a new dawn broke over the planet. The sky, once filled with fear and destruction, now glowed with the light of hope. Commander Reyes stood on the balcony, staring at the horizon. Her heart was still racing, but she allowed herself a moment of peace. Dr. Kwan walked up beside her. "We did it," he said quietly. "We saved humanity." Reyes nodded, looking out over the world they had protected. "We fought together. And now, we rebuild." But somewhere, deep in the far reaches of space, a new shadow watched. The darkness had been defeated, but it had not been destroyed. Somewhere out there, the next challenge waited. For now, Earth had its victory. But the stars were still watching. And humans knew their fight had only just begun.